Hi. In this session, we're going to talk about node modules and how do we pick node modules, right? So, what are node modules? So, the tech industry is so huge, and the JavaScript community also is one of the is I think the largest community currently for tech, and there are existing libraries that we can use whenever we are building our projects. The reason why we have existing libraries is so that we don't have to do something called reinventing the wheel. Meaning, if someone has built it before, rather than sit and break your head and figure out how do I create this, we can just pick up an already existing library, an already existing open source library, and work with it, right? So, how do we choose these libraries? Where do we find them? So, if we come here to Google and we just search for npm, that's the node package manager we just spoke about, we have this website called npmjs.com, and it's got a search bar, and we can search for whatever packages that we might want to use over here. So let's say currently our project goal is to just console.log a random superhero name. So how would we go about doing that? Now, if we did not have access to these modules, what we might do is we might come here and create a list of superhero names and populate it. And then maybe we would build a random number generator or find some logic for a random number generator and try to generate the list from here. But before we start writing functionality for anything, the first thing we should do is we should come here to this npmjs.com website and search and see if we can find anything. So, since we want to generate a random superhero name, let's just do a quick search and see if we can find any packages that match that criteria. So, I'm just going to search for superhero names and I get a list of packages. So there's one here called superheroes. Let me open that. Superhero name library. Let me open that. Comely heroes, superhero CLI. You can see I'm just basically opening whatever I'm finding over here. And I'm not just going to stop here. I'm actually going to change my search so that I can see um, if I can find anything else. So I don't find anything for this. Let me try something else. And let me open this up. I think we've already opened superhero name library. Yes, superheroes we have opened. Let's open this. I think we already opened this one. So we've already got a bunch of packages. So now let's start to compare them. So if we go to the first one, how do we tell if this is a good package or not? So the best way to tell if a package is good or not is to take a look at the documentation and see if you can figure out how to use this package just by reading the documentation, right? Because someone else has created this package, you need to know how to use it. If there's no documentation given on how to use this package, you won't be able to use it. So the first step is always to check and see if the documentation is good. So it looks fairly straightforward. So this is how we would get access to this package, and this is the code we would write in JavaScript to use the package. Now it looks fairly straightforward. So there's a function called random. So this looks good. So let's keep this here. Let's go to the next one. This documentation also looks fairly straightforward to use. Of course, the first one looked better, but that's okay. Documentation will look different. Let's go to the third one. Third one also looks good. Fourth one also looks good, but if we pay a closer attention to it, we'll see that this is something that is supposed to be used from the command line. I think that's why it's mentioned -CLI. So we want to use this from JavaScript. So we're not going to consider this package. I'm just going to close it. This one is for Marvel characters, and yeah, this also says random character. So we'll move to the next one. This looks like a fairly newer package because it says last published 2 months ago, and it says import, which is fine. But since we are currently working with Require and module.exports, we won't consider this even though it looks fairly straightforward. Um, let's assume that it does work with require and module.exports for now. So we'll just consider this, and let's go to the next one. This has got no documentation, so it's immediately, I don't want to use it. Same here. And so now we've got a list of one, two, three, four, five libraries. Now, how do we pick which is the better one to use from here? Now, let's come here. Let's take a look at all the other things mentioned on the web page, right? So we have weekly downloads. So weekly downloads is an indicator of how many people are currently using this package. The more number of weekly downloads, the more likely it is that if we search on Google, or if we go to the GitHub page, or if we search on Stack Overflow, we will be more likely to find support, or we might find answers for things that we might commonly have issues with. Now, 1370 is not a lot of downloads for these packages, because if we compare all of them, this one says 22, this one has 2, this one's got 32, and this one's got 121. These are not a lot. The reason I'm mentioning it now is because when we go to npm.js and when we start working with the more popular packages such as Express, you will see it is so large that it automatically becomes something that we need to consider, right? So in our case here, this has got the most number of downloads, which is great, but we also do need to see if it is frequently maintained, meaning when was it last published. So if there is a package which has got a similar number of downloads and the last published was slightly more recent, that means we might be more likely to get support for that package, which is a good thing. So let's just compare and see this. So this has got 1370, this has got 22, this has got 2. So I'm just automatically going to discard this. I also do not know what Comely superheroes are, so it is not great for me to work with something that I'm not 100% sure about. So I'm just going to close that. Marvel characters has got 32, and this one has got 121. So either way, we were not considering this because of this import statement. Um, so it's going to discard this as well. And you can see this package is automatically one out. It's got 1370. This has got 22. This goes out. This has got 32. This goes out, and this becomes the package we are going to use, right? Simple. Sometimes we also do consider the package size and the license, but those are not big considerations anymore, seeing as we don't have issues with hard disk space and stuff like that. Sometimes if you're building mobile applications with JavaScript, they do become a consideration, but by that time you have already searched and figured out how to use and choose packages that you will be able to figure out by yourself if it's worth it or not. So how do we install this? So we can install it. Sometimes the install command is mentioned here. If it's not, it's right up here. You can copy it. I'll just copy this either way. I'm going to come here, and you can see that I have got package.json and my gitignore files already. So I'm just going to do npm, or I'm just going to paste it, sorry. And you can see there's a new folder called node modules that have been created. These node modules are basically, this code has been downloaded and kept in a folder for you called node modules so that you can use it easily. And if you take a look at the gitignore file, you will find that node modules is somewhere here. And the reason why it is in the gitignore file is because we got it from the internet. So if I install it on my system, or if you install it on your system, or if someone installs it on a server somewhere, we know that we are going to get access to the same exact code. So that is the reason why it is not tracked using Git. But how do we track it? We also do have to track what is happening. So if you take a look at package.json, you can see there's a new dependency called superheroes, which is the same package name I installed, and it's got some version number. And if you come here to the npm page and take a look, it's the same version number that is here. Now these symbols mean something. I will suggest that you search on Google and try to figure out what these mean. But in the meantime, we will move on, right? Just to demonstrate that why node modules is not needed, let's say you commit it and you upload it to GitHub or GitLab. How do you get access to those files again later? So let me just remove node modules, and you can see it doesn't disappear from there immediately. That's okay. It's disappeared from here. And let me see if I can toggle it. No, okay, let's refresh there, it's gone. Now, if I just type npm install, what npm install will do, it will go through all the dependencies mentioned here in package.json and install them. If you take a look here, you can see they've been installed. What are these other packages that showed up? They're nothing but the dependencies for the package that we just installed. So you can see this has got a dependency. So packages that we install might have other dependencies as well. Npm install will install all of them. So if you have only one or two, you might still see a large list here. Okay, there's nothing to worry about there. And there's another file called package lock. I will leave that to you to Google and figure out what this package is for, or what this file is for. Okay. Next, how do we use this package? So let me just get rid of this. Let's just say, let's run this file. It says hello world, great. So we come back to the documentation, you see here, this is how we use it. So I'm just going to copy paste that here. And usually whenever we import a module, we always try to keep the imported name the same as the package name. That way we don't run into confusion later about what is it exactly that we are using. Okay, so we come here, let's copy paste this because we want the random one, we don't want all. And let's just say we paste it like that, hello and the superhero name. And let's try running it. It says hello cloud9. There's an additional space here. And the more we run it, you can see that yes, the superhero name is getting generated and it is random. Okay, so that is pretty much how we use an open source module. Remember to always search for modules on npm before you start writing any code. That way you might save yourself a few hours or a few days worth of work. Okay, and let's say, okay, now we commit, let's add everything, and we can add a nice commit message. We'll say initial commit with random superhero name being generated. And you can see Git has completely ignored node modules. So what would happen whenever you clone this repository after you pushed it? You won't have the node modules folder. It also won't show you an issue. But if you run index.js, you might run into this error where it says it cannot find the module called superheroes. If you see an error like this, just go to package.json, verify it if it is there. Otherwise, you'll have to install it yourself. If it is there, just come here, type npm install, and then run it again, and your code will work. So that is the basics on how to use an npm module, on how to choose a good npm module, the things to consider, that is the documentation, the weekly downloads, the last time it was published, and of course to an extent the license. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comments.